Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and a tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to another Roll20 review, my written and video review series. We take a look at the marketplace section of online role-playing website, roll20.net. With this video, I'll be reviewing the 5e adventure bundle, Planescape Adventures in the Multiverse, designed by Wizards of the Coast for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. A review copy has been provided for the purposes of this review. If you enjoy these videos, consider supporting me via patreon.com/Rogue Watson, and there will be lots of spoilers. Now, I know if you've been watching the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you probably have a lot of multiverse worry on the brain, but when it comes to the multiverse in the D&D world, that is specifically tied to the planes, all the different planes that exist kind of right next to each other, and these are entire worlds ruled by like concepts or ideals, alignments, perhaps certain kinds of creatures. And at the very center of the multiverse, although it even says in the book that really there is no center of the multiverse, but the closest thing we have that is Sigil, which is the City of Doors. And this is a very cool, exotic city that exists with all these different portals that lead to all these different worlds. Kind of like Radiant Citadel. I think Radiant Citadel was kind of a ripoff of Sigil in that way, where it's just this hub world with different ways to get across to these different worlds. And that's literally what Sigil is. And you've got all these different manner of creatures. There's hags and fiends and angels and beholders, like all just come to the city and just hang out. It's like the big watering hole of the multiverse where everybody comes, hangs out, and chills. And it seems like a pretty cool location just to have your players stop in, but also could be interesting for a story and an adventure. So specifically, Adventures in the Multiverse is a 3-part pack. This is designed similarly, not similarly, exactly like the Spelljammer adventure was. It is 3 smaller sized books, of which we've got, let's see, Sigil in the Outlands, which is in Roll20 represented in the Compendium, which has your player-focused content, as well as information on the City of Doors, Sigil, and then the surrounding area known as the Outlands. And then we've got Mort's Planar Parade. This is the monster book, which is headlined by Mort, who is a floating skull and one of the more memorable characters from Planescape Torment, a video game that I played over 20 years ago, and of which I only remember little bits and pieces. I've never finished because I was a teenager at the time, but I remember being very cool, and is still regarded to be one of the best written and most compelling CRPGs you can play to this day. And finally, we have the Adventure, which is the Turn of Fortune's Wheel, which is of course baked into Roll20's actual journal entry. So what all do you get with this $49.99 bundle on Roll20? So you get the Turn of Fortune's Wheel module, which includes a 3-part adventure organized in 15 chapters. Again, if you played or looked at the Spelljammer adventure, Light of Xerxes, it is organized in the exact same way, where it's smaller chunks. In fact, I'll show you, and I'm going to go through this whole adventure, but it's organized into these smaller chapters within these kind of Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, and it makes leveling up really easy. It makes getting information very easy. I actually really love the way this is organized, and it translates really well into Roll20's journal system. We also get the Compendium, which of course includes the Sigil and the Outlands information, which Chapter 1 has 2 new player backgrounds, 7 feats, 2 spells, 3 magic items, and then we've got the Sigil Gazetteer. By the way, I hate that it's pronounced Sigil. Look that shit up because it is pronounced that way, even though I prefer the normal way you pronounce the word, which is sigil, which I think is a cool word, but apparently the name of the city is pronounced Sigil. I do not like that. The Sigil Gazetteer includes information on 12 factions of the city, as well as the 16 gate towns around the Outlands, which are these basically outposts that have their own portals into their respective planes. So all of these towns represent their own planes within this world, and there's a whole cool map for there. And the adventure actually goes around into the Outlands to all these different, to about maybe a third of the towns as well. The compendium also includes all the new monsters in Mort's Planar Parade, which are over 50 new monsters, as well as the Planar Influence customization options and a D100 of Planar Encounters, which I can show you some of those. So like the Planar Influence allows you to attach different like traits and abilities to different creatures, depending on if they're from different of these different planes, like Acheron, the plane of war. There's all these different the celestial planes. There's one of talking creatures. There's prison town plane. There's the limbo plane. Like all these different mechanics, which is the Modron plane of constructs, and you can just attach these different traits to all these different creatures. And then the planar encounters table, which includes a giant D100 list, an excuse to use all these different creatures. Now, instead of it being tied to specific regions, they'll be tied to kind of alignment style planar encounters, which is probably the best way to figure out how to do that. Mort, I love that Mort is the MC of the monster book and shows up and has little funny quips on everything, and just you get this giant like jackass grin on all these things. Just absolutely great use of that character. In the same way that Minx was obviously a great use in the other monster book as well. Or I guess it was it Boo's menagerie thing in the Spelljammer book. So really fun way that they use to couch those. And then the art pack, which includes, let's go to the art gallery, over 200 tokens. That may be a record. I think Dragonlance also had a bunch. But I'm really liking this new Roll20 that uses every single piece of art throughout these books and turns it into a token for your pleasure. Whether or not they make sense as tokens, whether or not they're even like fully resolution art or whatever, like anytime you see a creature or a person or anything that could be a token, they have turned into a token here, to the point where we get over 200 of them. There's actually over 400, but 200 with the kind of yellow and orange token border, and then the others with the blue token border. They make those NPC or PC, but obviously it's up to you in terms of how you want to do that. And then finally, we get the actual adventure module. This adventure module, as I said, is a 3-part adventure organized into 15 chapters. The adventure is from levels 3 to 10, and also with a jump to level 17 for the very last chapter. It actually makes sense why that happens, and I'll explain how the very cool beginning of the story ties into that and has it make sense why we do get to have that cool jump. And one of my complaints for a lot of 5e adventures is that the players always get like some superpowered ability, to where, spoilers for, I guess, Tomb of Annihilation, where they get the Trickster Gods, and that embodies them to be able to fight like a Serac, or in Storm King's Thunder, where they get the giant allies and the potions, where that they can then fight like an ancient blue dragon, like things that they haven't earned the right to fight yet because they're only like level 11 or something. And in here, they actually straight up get a huge jump in ability, so that then they can take on the bigger threats for the finale. But it makes sense why they actually get to jump up, and I'll explain that in the adventure. The adventure also includes 11 5-foot fully colored maps. The map arts is fantastic, which always makes me very excited because obviously that looks really, really good in Roll20. I'm super pleased. In fact, this might be one of the best map art that I have seen that Roll20 has, or that D&D has produced, which I did not expect that from the Planescape adventure, from an adventure book that's only like a third of the size of a normal adventure book. Like, absolutely incredible. We don't get as many maps. There's only 11 here because, again, it's that smaller sized adventure, and yet, my goodness, the map art is incredible, and I'll show you some of that further in the review. 2 regional maps, one of Sigil and one of the surrounding region of the Outlands. Over 120 monster sheets and tokens, including over 20 named NPCs. So only, 50 of them are part of the actual new creatures. The others are just, regular creatures that have already been introduced. But if you purchase this module, you will get all those creatures that appear in this module that you need to use, all their stat blocks, the tokens, everything that you need to run those creatures. Also get over 50 magic item handouts, only 9 of which have pictures, over 30 player art handouts. These are basically anything that wouldn't be a token, but would be some kind of artwork that you'd like to show your players that just appear in the book in some way. And also over 20 rollable tables and macros. These are used for like encounter tables, or basically anytime you would see a table in the book, they're already plugged in here and you can use them. All right, so specifically I want to focus this review on the adventure because that's what's going to show best in a Roll20 review. I will say I think that the Sigil and the Outlands book is great. I think it is better than the Spelljammer source book. I didn't have any complaints. I didn't come away thinking, gosh, I don't know enough about any of these things. I guess the complaint is that the character options are probably the least impressive, because if you, and I'm going to be comparing this to Spelljammer a lot, because again, it set up those 3 books exactly like Spelljammer, and it has its own unique exotic setting. So it just, very similarly compared. Spelljammer added new races, ancestries, etc. This one does not have any of that. It has probably the least exciting of the player-focused stuff, where it adds, some new background, some new feats, which have their own prerequisites. You kind of have to take Sign of the Outer Planes to be able to take any of the others, for example. But otherwise, it has not a whole lot for players. But for DMs, I think it's fantastic. It has a whole chapter on Sigil and a whole chapter on the Outlands. And Sigil goes over, like, who is the Lady of Pain, which we've been staring at right now. She's this very important godlike figure who abhors having worship. She's in charge of the city. She can shut the whole city down on a whim. She's, has got her own, like, task force who all have, like, telekinetic powers and everything. The Gazetteer is just a fantastic resource of information. It covers all these different factions and all the different wards and areas, and it even includes some adventures in Sigil, which are basically just a series of adventure hooks based on some of the areas. There's encounters. Just all of this information is really fantastic. And then the Outlands then covers specifically all the gate towns. So Sigil exists on this spire at the very top of this very crazy area that looks like, I don't know, somebody vomited like an open world fantasy adventure with all these, you stand on the precipice and you see all these cool things you can go to. And it's primarily all about the gate towns, which are these specific towns that exist on the very edge of this realm, and then they all have portals that lead to their respective planes. So all the towns, of course, represent, like the carcerai, which is like the prison, the plane or whatever, like and then the town is, of course, this prison town where you can get in, but you can't get out very easily. So they represent, and the adventure actually goes through a number of them as well. So I really like the source book specifically for DMs. I think it does a great job showing off just all that this has to offer. And then Mort's Planar Parade, I think, is also a fantastic monster book. I absolutely love Mort as the MC behind everything. The artwork is fantastic, and the new creatures are, they're good. Maybe the new creatures aren't quite as crazy as the Spelljammer creatures were. I can go over some of the highlights that I saw, which was let's see. Oh, we finally have dog creatures with the Hound Archons. More Celestials is always good, by the way, and this adds a couple Celestials to the mix. There was also an interesting creature, which is featured in the adventure, that is a disembodied flying head. That actually it turns into this victim. It like, you can get cursed with this thing, and then your head like literally disembodies and becomes the creature, which is pretty messed up. And then you encounter creatures that were former people that their heads ripped off and then fly around like creepy bat things. It feels like something out of Castlevania. It's absolutely fantastic. And then there's the Roll20, I believe they're called. I keep having to go back. I guess I shouldn't X out of it. I should back out of it instead. Which are these cool, like, I don't know, they feel like they should be something out of StarCraft. Let's see. This creature, Romani. Yeah, look at that. Or it looks very alien and very exotic and cool, and just something you would see in the Planescape universe. But they specifically maintain, like, the neutrality of the Outlands. They're like the neutral multiverse cops, I guess, in a way. And you get to run into, at least one of those plays a kind of major part towards the end of the adventure. So I do like the creatures a lot, and I think just more being able to comment on all the creatures and everything is cool. The planar influences are nice, and the encounter table. So all of that basically gets a thumbs up from me in terms of the other content. Now for the adventure, and here's where the shoe is going to drop. I wish I liked this adventure more. I love the maps and I love the start, but I came away kind of disappointed by the overall story that it tries to tell and the pacing, and I think it's got some problems in it, and that's a bummer because it looks great and it starts off so well. I guess right before I do that, sorry, I keep having to go back and tease the adventure. I will cover the fact, if you haven't seen, what was the most recent one I did? The Shattered Obelisk, I think. Roll20's tips page and dynamic lighting page have become standard now for a while. And these are just designed for newcomers. These are included, I believe, in all of the new adventures. I don't know if they're retroactively included in older books or anything. But they're very helpful to give all the information that you would need to run the game, especially this dynamic lighting table. If you are a subscriber to Roll20 and you have the dynamic lighting option, then you can actually see what dynamic lighting looks like in this sample page, and really just helps you be able to tell like how to use the new doors and windows function, how to open things, how to create light sources. Like these are really, really cool tips pages that did not exist. I think they're new this year, and they're standard now, but I think it's still worth highlighting and praising Roll20 for putting this together, because Roll20 does have a lot of features that a lot of folks wouldn't really know to use or take advantage of. And this page is specifically as if you're a subscriber and you've unlocked the dynamic lighting functionality, which looks really, really good. And I would recommend not to just shill for Roll20 all the time, but I would recommend it if you're going to play in Roll20 for any serious length of time. I think the DM needs to have this capability because it really helps put things together. All right, now we're going to finally talk about the adventure. So if you have played the video game Planescape Torment, which again, very classic game. I have not played it in forever. I literally have the box. In fact, give me 1 second. Let's show. There we go. So I have my old box. I came with the receipts for this game. Never finished it. By the way, if you want to see me do like a Let's Play or something, then let me know if there's any interest in playing some of these old RPGs. I did play Icewind Dale at one point, the enhanced edition. I believe there's an enhanced edition of Planescape Torment now. So I played it back in the day, but again, I was younger. I know I didn't finish it. I don't know how far I get, but I did remember the beginning of the game has you waking up in a mortuary as a dead body, but obviously you're not dead, and you've got this talking skull named Mort who's saying like, "Hey, Chief," and like just being a really good foil to the fact that you're in this really creepy setting. You don't know what's going on. He's just a delightful character. That's exactly how this adventure starts, which is fucking awesome. You start off in the mortuary table in Sigil, and Mort is there saying, "Hey, Chief," and talking to you, and it's absolutely delightful. So huge, huge Easter egg and fun. If you have played Planescape Torment, literally the adventure starts off in the exact same way. So the twist here is that the adventures, let's see if I can get to adventure summary, are experiencing a multiversal glitch where they have become untethered. I'm going to sound like the Loki like synopsis here. They become untethered from like time and space. I don't think they quite know this, or they're supposed to know this yet, but they are high-level adventurers who have died, and now they have suddenly been reborn in Sigil at 3rd level in the mortuary, and they were just dead bodies. And the whole thing is like, what's going, like the plot is basically like, what is going on? Why is this situation happening? You don't remember anything. And if you die, if your character dies, the universe like keeps glitching to try and recorrect like why you're here, because like it doesn't, you're not supposed to be, you're not supposed to exist in this capacity, and it literally respawns you, but it's supposed to be in a slightly different, this is the glitch characters part, in a slightly different way when you make the character. And it even talks about the fact that you can have the players do this in the beginning, or you can have it be a shock and a surprise. Yeah, surprise incarnations or prepared incarnations, in terms of like, are they supposed to know that this is going to happen? In other words, hey, create multiple versions of your character, maybe slightly different, classes or race. Like you can go really pretty far. It's almost like you're entering like a respec, machine at a video game or something, where it's like, hey, you can change things around. You're supposed to have at least like one. Your personality is supposed to be basically the same, but otherwise everything is supposed to be, or you're supposed to change a lot of things when you respawn. But suddenly it makes sense why you're respawning, which I believe was the case in Planescape Torment, where your character couldn't die. You were like immortal, but you're kind of cursed with immortality. And it's baked into this adventure in a really cool way. That is a very compelling start to this adventure. You realize like you can die, but then you respawn kind of nearby in a slightly different capacity. And this first dungeon, this mortuary basement, is designed to kill you left and right. It's kind of insane. In fact, at one point, there is actually the one hallway that connects the left side and the right side of this dungeon is a crematorium that will just burn you alive very, very easily, thanks to Maurice the zombie pulling the lever there. And in fact, there's Yep, there's the actual picture of it. That seems very dangerous. That seems like an OSHA violation for sure. That literally the one hallway they have to get to this left side of the map is this crematorium dungeon, and it's very much like this. Hey, they're going to pull the lever, and you're all going to burn. In fact, I believe it even says somewhere there's like a good chance. Yeah, a character could easily die in Area M5. If this happens, reveal the characters of multiple incarnations. It's kind of set up to where there's a lot of them are supposed to die here, and then they respawn. So this whole dungeon is supposed to be kind of a killer dungeon, and it even mentions that at the beginning, like, hey, at third level, yeah, this is going to be way too much. This dungeon is a delight, though. It's really funny. There's like a ghost butler serving you poisoned food. There's just an employee sleeping in the mortuary, but also zombies that can wake up. There's a bunch of poltergeists putting on a show for like slack-jawed skeletons. There's a black pudding attached to a corpse that gets shoved down a chute, which the players could try to climb back up there if they wanted to. There's a fucking demi-lich in here writing epitaphs for people who have died and trying to like eulogize them, and you can help him or he can just kill you all. Like, it's absolutely crazy. The bummer is the adventure never comes close to getting this good again. Like, it's such a great introduction. It's an amazing dungeon. It looks good on Roll20, and it never reaches the height of this introduction. And I'm not going to go through necessarily every single chapter, but the adventure summary is you start at third level, and you're designed to level up for the majority, because it's actually under running the adventure, for the first couple chapters, and then it kind of enters the open world mode, where you only level up after, like, I think every other chapter, to where by the end of chapter 14, you should be 10th level, and then you'll do the crazy jump for the actual final level. And the jump, if you haven't already figured it out, by the way, is the players remembering who they were by the end, getting all that information, and then they suddenly become the leveled up version. You can still kind of give an excuse. It's like, well, because you glitched, now you're still your character, but now you've gotten all your memories, so you've leveled up like this much into this version. Or maybe that was always this version of your character was the correct one, is probably how you would play it. And then you become your original character, where you jump up to level 17, and then you can go on for the finale, which that's a great twist also. That's actually baked into the story, which is a cool thing. Unfortunately, I think I guess we'll get to the finale in a second. So then you go up. So you still don't know what's going on the whole time, right? The whole mortuary basement, you don't know what's anything going on. You end up in Sigil, which we do have a map for. And it's a pretty crazy map. Honestly, both the Sigil map and the Outlands map are very crazy cool looking. I would definitely use them, and they look really good in Roll20. They're fully colored. It's one of those things that's like, well, you can't really make a map of it, but here's a map, and because we want you to have something to look at. You run into a goat lady who can help you, I guess, for a second, but then she doesn't really. I thought there's like, okay, this is the NPC that's going to stick around. That's not the case at all. She stays out for like 2 seconds. You kind of get like arrested by the cops of Sigil, the Harmonium, who are like, hey, you guys shouldn't exist. We detect that you're glitching in the multiverse. We need to take you in. And then depending on how the characters deal with that, they end up running into Pharaoh, who has this ring, the Shatterkai, who can disguise themselves as different things, and they get the players out of it, and they lead the players to. That's all chapter 2, and then chapter 3 is they lead them to Fortune's Wheel, which is the big casino in Sigil, and this location is amazing. I will say this is the second best part of the adventure, is the casino, because first of all, if you enjoyed was it the Stygian Gambit from Keys to the Golden Vault, where it was kind of this cool underground casino with some like exotic adventure stuff going. That has nothing on the Fortune's Wheel. The Fortune's Wheel is it's amazing. It's got so many cool things going on here. There's like hags at the slot machines. There's a white dragon at the bar drowning his sorrows. There's a yeti serving that white dragon. There's ghosts and skeleton troubadours giving off at the stage. There's just amazing. There's a bunch of hound archons playing dice. There's so many mini games that are actually like given cool mechanical things to do, where you can actually sit there and play legit mini games and slot machines. And this casino is incredible, and it's kind of wasted on this adventure because, gosh, why do you not stage some kind of cool scene here is beyond me. Like a chase sequence or something like makes Ah, it would be incredible. Instead, they just kind of go and they fart around, and then they meet with the head boss, who is Shamishka, which is this Arcanoloth. And let's see, where's that under? I guess it's this lady here. I'm trying to find where it says her. Not Pharaoh. It's somewhere in Fortune's Wheel. Maybe it's under timed events then. Um, yeah, the Vecna impersonator. There we go. Shamishka. There she is. And she is the quest giver, and the plot is like, she's like, well, I'll try to figure out what's wrong with you, but you need to go find this Modron who's out in the Outlands. And by recovering, and in order to find the Modron, she hands you a floating skull, which I don't know why. And by the way, Mort does not accompany you. I guess I missed that part in the mortuary basement. He's purely an Easter egg. He wakes up, talks to everybody, and says, "No, I'm waiting for somebody," which is literally the start. I guess he's waiting for the start of Planescape Torment. That's a cute Easter egg, but man, what a waste of that character to not have them like at least be with the character. You could even have Mort be the Mimmer basically and accompany the players throughout the entire adventure. Might be the way that I would go with that. That would be a fantastic use of that character. Instead, they get a Mimir, which is this kind of floating skull thing that records information. It's like a tour guide. And she says, "Hey, this belonged to the Modron, and you have to record the missing information from the following. I think it's 7 different gate towns around the Outlands." So finally, at the end of chapter 3, you get the main quest. But the main quest is like, well, go to the Outlands and go to all these different towns and get some information, and then find this Modron, and then this Modron. I actually forget if the Modron has answers or if it's just that that is what she wants, and then she'll give the answers. Anyway, there's the plot twist, and obviously spoilers for this whole thing. The plot twist is that she's actually the villain, and she's responsible for the multiversal glitch that the characters are involved in. She's been fucking up with the Modrons, and somehow the characters got involved with that. I think because she had originally killed the characters in some incarnation. There was some backstory there. And her excuse is like, well, she sends out the characters thinking that they would get killed in the process, but because it's D&D instead, they have a chance to go to the Outlands and get a bunch of experience and loot, and then become strong enough to take her out later in the chapter. How ironic! Instead of actually just defeating the character. In fact, she had the multiversal glitch resulted in like their dead bodies, and then she just like deposed them in the mortuary. And then when she sees them walking around, then she gives them all this big quest instead of just taking them out right then, even though she has way the means to do that, because obviously you fight her later and she's got all these guards and shit. So I don't know, that seems all very strange to me, and it sucks that there's not enough cool things to do inside the Fortune's Wheel Casino. And then that basically ends the entire section of Sigil. We don't really get to spend a lot of time here. You know, there's the under Sigil part where we have this little there's one interesting, which is this encounter here where we fight a bunch of thugs who are part of this faction called the Cakers, and they're baking these creepy ass cakes, and they're full of those Varghouls, and their heads all detach and become, you know, and that can happen to the players too, which of course is supposed to be extra deadly because again, the players can just respawn as different versions. That's like the only cool thing that happens in Sigil. As there's a few encounters here and there, but it feels like you're kind of wasting the city, and then you're kind of wasting this excellent casino. Now it's still here, it's still all, you know, all the tokens and art is here, so you could use this in any fashion that you wanted to as a DM. But I think in terms of how it's used in the story, I think it was disappointing because we have to jump right into the Outlands, and I don't think the Outlands are as interesting as Sigil, and I don't think I'm alone in that opinion. This is the Outlands map. It's very cool. It looks like a very classic old-timey, you know, fantasy adventure map that you would find at the start of a book or something. And it has all these different, there's a dozen of them, over maybe 16 or so of these gate towns that exist along the edge. They were all detailed in the Sigil and the Outlands compendium book, which is included in the compendium. But the main quest here is to go to 7 of them, which are missing their entries, and just recording information, which it is kind of interestingly mentioned in the story that, like, hey, whether they record the information correctly or not actually bakes into the finale in a way, which is kind of neat. Which that is kind of interesting. Basically, however, you end up turning this information into kind of a big character at the end, and then depending on how truthful you were about these locations, you know, whether you were a jackass and just lied about everything when you record the information, will determine kind of the future of the Modrons, but the players have no way of knowing that. Like originally, like they're just like, who knows what they're trying to do at this point. They're just trying to find some Modron. So I don't know. It's not a very compelling hook after that. Basically, I feel like they're with a little bit of change and tweaks, it could have been a lot more interesting. The first thing they do when they arrive, they this giant walking castle, which hopefully they take the bait, because there's no, again, reason for them to explore it technically. It's just everything in here is kind of a side jaunt, although it's still part of the main quest. Anyway, this walking castle becomes their means of locomotion, assuming they go in there and they clear it out. This is probably the next best dungeon after the mortuary basement. There's not a lot of dungeons in here. In fact, mortuary basement and this one are probably the only two dungeon crawls. I guess the finale is a little dungeony, but it's more like a series of encounters that are mapped. It's not really, like, to me, a dungeon is like somewhere you throw the players in and they're allowed to walk around and look at stuff. And also, this one is pretty linear, even though it's cool. It's this giant walking castle, which is run by a Gitzerai, but it's been invaded and taken over by a bunch of fiends, so the players have to just fight or talk to a bunch of these fiend characters. I think they're level, gosh, only like level 5 by now, I believe, maybe 6. Actually, no, they should be higher than that, because by the time we do the open world section, I think it's like 9, and so maybe they're like 7 or 8. I mean, hell, they're fighting like Nikolos and shit, Mizalos. So they get in the walking castle, they take it out, and now they've got, or they save the Gitzerai, basically, and now they've got access to this kind of cool means of locomotion to, you know, kind of skip all of the encounters, I guess, because at this level, like, you kind of don't have to do a lot of encounters, although there's a really cute one, chapter 12, kind of confusingly, has a bunch of different encounters you can run, including angels in the Outlands, which is really cute. It's a baseball match between angels and devils the players can get involved in, which is nice. I like that. There's also a really cool encounter with a time dragon where they meet the adult time dragon, and then they can save the young one, and the ancient one can rescue them later on and give them like a thing. I like there's like 2 or 3 encounters that are kind of cool, but that's about it. And they're scripted instead of like random tables. But the whole adventure from the entire middle point on is going around to these different gate towns. There's 7 of them you have to explore: Automata, Cursed, Excelsior, Faunel, Glorium, Rigis, and Sylvania. And I did not really like this section much at all. It feels like you get the sampler pack, and they only give you like 1 of each thing, and whether or not you like it or not, you're just not spending any more time there. I guess there's a variety of things to do there. So, you know, one of the like Glorium, which is kind of the Theros like, you know, town of like heroes and stuff, you end up battling these giant crocodile creatures called whirlworms, and it's just fighting a giant version of that creature. You're on like a weird bird-shaped boat, which there is a map for that. Most of them have like a single map, but they're like single encounters. None of these are like good meaty dungeon crawls or anything like that. Another one has you just kind of investigating missing people around the Celestia town. One of them is you're cheering up just a sad Empyrean, and you're trying to make her feel better by going through a bunch of things in the like revel kind of hedonistic town. I think that's, yeah, Sylvania with the Empyrean here, Copoa. There's defending the town of Rigis from a invading force from the plane of Acheron in the Acheron incursion. So I guess the advantage here is that there's something to like for everybody. Like, some of them aren't mapped at all. Like, again, that investigation of the missing people in the one town, there's nothing really to do. There's no maps there because there's no real battle. Others, it's just like, hey, pure battle. Like the Glorium one is pure battling. Although there's no encounter map for the final like battle against the giant version at the end either. This one, the Gate to Acheron, has its own little battle map. We're fighting like Ettins and stuff. It's fine, I guess, but it just feels like a series of side encounters. It feels very, I don't know, Alice in Wonderland plot. I guess for people that want it, want that, was it Wild Beyond the Witchlight, or that feeling of that Strangers in a Strange Land where you're just kind of going through the motions and you're experiencing all this exoticism, then that's fine. But I think a D&D adventure needs and deserves kind of a better plot. And this one starts off with a good-ass story, a very compelling hook at the beginning where you're like, oh shit, we've been like reborn in these bodies and we don't know what's going on. We're in this strange place. Like, who are you people? What's going, like, just that was all very cool. But then you're not really given a good hook after that. And I think Wild Beyond the Witchlight, for being also an exotic place, has, you know, villains. It has dungeons. I kind of feel like that's a better version of the, you know, hey, we're in a strange world kind of concept, even though I think this one starts off better. I think Wild Beyond the Witchlight does that better than this Planescape adventure does. It feels like this Planescape adventure is merely an excuse to use as much content from the source book as possible. And I don't think that's necessarily the way to go. I would have rather had you be like, all right, you need to go to like, the open world section says you need to go to like these 3 towns and do more meatier things there, like have multiple steps of stuff and have it be important where you're like, maybe you're collecting allies along the way and they're joining your forces. And then at the end, you need all these allies to make it into the final area or something. I don't know. But I didn't get a good feel for any of these things. And some of them are better than others. But as an excuse to like explore all these things, there's just like, it just feels like a series of encounters where you experience the kind of exoticism of these, various domains and things. So I wasn't a big fan. And unfortunately, that's really the bulk of the adventure. That's the entire kind of middle part of the adventure. Finally, chapter 13. So that's chapters 5 through 11, and then 12 is the encounters, which I actually did kind of like the encounters. The random encounters you can have along the way. Chapter 13 is finally you've gotten all of the missing data. You've explored all these towns, which is totally up to the players in terms of the order they want to do that in. And then you get to, which there's no maps for any of this, which is horrifying. You finally find the Modron. You end up interacting with the Romalni at their town of Dendris. You end up having one with you. And then they help you basically track down the Modron, who is inside of the Spire, where you have a lot of really crazy, creepy encounters in here. You have to fight a Darkweaver. You have to, you could get evil secrets from a Baronoloth, sorry. Including even get your hands on the Book of Vile Darkness. There's some, it's a cool, it's not a dungeon crawl though, it's a series of encounters. Everything's just a series of encounters. There's not even a dungeon map for the inside of the Spire, which is annoying. You finally get the Modron after all of this. And it's the Modron who reveals, hey, that Arcanoloth lady who sent you on this quest, she's actually the real villain. She killed you all and all the multiple glitches because of you. And then she's also we're in the middle of the Great Modron March, and all the Modrons have been sucked into like this other realm, and you need to go save them. It's this really weird, like it almost has nothing to do with the party at that point. Well, I guess it does, but like they're like, wait, what? Who cares about the Modron March? I don't know. It feels much less personal than it could have been. So they go back to Fortune's Wheel. They can get the Modron's like teleporter he's got very conveniently and go back to Fortune's Wheel. Unfortunately, there's still not an actual battle here because the teleport in the Fortune's Wheel takes them to basically the high stakes room, which has all these weird interconnected planes where the players can bet on all these very weird things. And one of them is funny. It's just called like Dungeon Land, and they literally see other adventurers exploring other dungeons, and they can bet on to see if the adventurers survive or not. That's kind of funny. But all this, I don't know. It's fine. It's not a dungeon though. I missed my dungeon. It's not a dungeon crawl. And then there's the final showdown between Shamishka. She's 6, she's got her guards, and she's like, oh, you figured out my plan. You survived after all. Now you're super powerful. Crap. And then she battles the players. She finally reveals her true plot, which is something stupid to do with the Modron, and it's all a game to her, and blah, blah, blah. I don't know. It felt really fell flat to me, honestly, by the end of it. And then the players, defeat her and win, and they realize who they are, and they get up to level 17. And the story's not over yet. So, yeah, advanced character 17th level. They've defeated Shamishka. But then they have this really weird, where it's like, let's see if it talks about this. Where they go next is up to them after chapter 14. They're level 17. They can explore around Sigil. There's no rush to move on with these events. Like, the pacing has fallen apart completely at this point, which I think is horrifying for the finale. And then whenever the players choose to, they can actually go save the Modrons, who are currently in the middle of this like hellscape. They've gone to Gesmund, which is like the Beholder planar realm, which of insanity and danger, for this weird level 17 excursion. So I like the fact that the cool thing is, okay, they become level 17 again, even though they, you never experienced that in your playthrough, but you get to do that now. That's a cool twist. I love all that, but I don't know. The reason for it is not so you can go defeat Shamishka and all that, or it's some like cooler plot there. It's just like, oh no, we got to go rescue the Modrons from an admittedly cool area, but I don't know. It also feels weird pacing wise to go. This feels like a side quest, frankly. It doesn't feel like part of the main quest. You've already defeated the villain. It's just now you're defeating her scheme, I guess. And the ultimate big bad then is this planar incarnate of the Modrons, because the Modrons have been driven insane, and then this One super powerful Modron is the one that you can install like the Mimir that you've been recording to and see, depending on how truthful you've been, is how well this creature responds, or whether they become an ally, or whether they save all the Modrons, or basically the future of the Modrons. Did you know this was all about Modrons? Because I didn't, and you really didn't throughout the context of this adventure, which is bizarre. So yeah, it's a weird final chapter. I'll say that this adventure I don't think sticks the landing very well. It's got some really cool parts to it. The maps are incredible. Like, holy crap at these maps. Absolutely awesome. But gosh, I really wish I liked this adventure better. Let's go to my pros and cons for this entire bundle. Pros: Sigil in the Outlands is a comprehensive source book bursting with useful information and fun story ideas. Basically, super thumbs up to the actual source book. Maybe doesn't give us quite as much information to the players in terms of, you know, new content for players, but for DMs it gives me everything I want, and I feel like I would be confident running adventures around Sigil and the Outlands, even just with that source book alone. Pro: the Turn of Fortune's Wheel adventure features a wonderful start and a clever twist with respawning. I do want to give a shout out to how well it begins with the cool, basically just ripped out of Planescape Torment completely. But the fact that the players are also part of this multiversal glitch thing and they can respawn, like all of that is a really compelling hook to start the adventure. It's just a bummer that we can't do anything compelling with it after that. The titular casino in the adventure is full of fun characters, events, and mini games. I still feel like it's kind of wasted because there's not a good scene here that the players can, I don't know, like a chase sequence or action or something cool going on. But gosh, if you just wanted this for like to play a casino, like heist or something, like this would be absolutely incredible. What a cool location. And you can play like legit mini games with, you know, dice and all this, and it's awesome. I think it's a great location. I still think it's underutilized in this adventure. Pros: Mort. I love him. I wish he was used in this adventure more, but the fact that he pops in the beginning and the fact that he's basically the voice behind all of the different creatures in the monster compendium are fantastic. Pro: gorgeous full color map art. Holy crap. I have nothing but good to say about the actual maps. Probably one of my favorite map arts I've seen from an official D&D adventure in quite a while. It's a shame there's not more of it, and it's a shame the adventure is not better. Pro: Roll20 tips page and dynamic lighting example page are amazing for new users, but also for returning users who maybe just need a reminder of how this stuff works. This is standard now, but I'm still going to put it on my pro page because it's worth, saying good things about. Cons: the adventure lacks a strong central plot. From as good as that beginning is, it just kind of drops the ball when it comes to figuring out the story of who the characters are. Instead, they're basically given a big fetch quest and like, all right, we'll just go to the Outlands and record all this information, and then maybe you'll learn something. I mean, and even the villain's plot about sending them out doesn't make any sense, because like, why don't we just kill them right then and there just to make sure? I guess because they would keep respawning, but like, I don't know, just keep trying to hunt them down and kill them. Like, having the players be chased by like Sigil guards throughout like a good chunk of would be really compelling too, because they're like, you know, multiverse problems or something. I don't know. So maybe I disagree with using more of the Outlands versus Sigil. I don't think using all the going to so many gate towns was really necessary. In fact, that's my other con, basically, is that part 2 is basically just a series of short, disconnected side quests of varying quality. There's a variety of side quests there, but I guess they're main quests. That's a weird thing. Like, they feel like, I don't know, it just feels like a bunch of busy work, and that's like your main quest, is you have to go around to all these towns. If your players are into the exploration aspect and experiencing all these different gate town stuff, then maybe they would enjoy that, but I just don't think it's a compelling enough plot hook. It lacks like villains. It lacks villainous factions. It lacks good NPCs that stick with you. Like, it doesn't have any of that stuff that to me makes for a good D&D adventure. Final verdict: more than any other 5e adventure, the Planescape adventure embodies the Strangers in a Strange World archetype, but after its killer opening, never quite finds its footing as a compelling story in D&D's most exotic setting. Thank you to everyone for watching this video review. You can see my written review at roguewatson.com. You can watch more reviews and follow our own D&D adventures here on my YouTube channel, and you can support my work at patreon.com/roguewatson. Shout out to Platinum patrons: Joe, Will, Thomas, Dan, Brandon, Sinner, David, Eclectic, Roleplay Roll, Christopher, Corey, Coy, Big Nut, John F., John L., Scott, Eric, Tyler, Nathan, Camp Crystal, Counselor, Andrew, Daryl, The Reldron, Captain Woody 79, Stephanie, Andy, Patrick, Jason C., Jason T., and Ismail. And gold patrons: RPG Papercrafts, Pretty Boy, Newman, Dead Lizard Lion, Sam, Lumpy Spuds, Jerome, Nathan, Faz, Like a Tortoise, Scott, Repus, Caroline, Jerry, and Thomas. Thank you all very much for your support.